Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries. My name is John, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the slightly more manual methods I've been using in my Smoke and Snow campaign to put across information for the players. But first of all, cue the music. Okay, so I did an episode a while ago where I was talking about how I'd had a few problems with the VTT I was using then, and the sort of speed and lag and stuff like that, generally when changing maps or when using something a little bit more sort of processor intensive or that really chewed up my bandwidth. So we decided after a while of struggling on with it to switch to using Owlbear Rodeo as our VTT, which is a very simple VTT. It's hosted online, it's all in the browser, so you just move stuff around, and that seems to be like pretty quick for us. However, since I was using the previous VTT Foundry to store the character sheets, etc., obviously Owlbear Rodeo doesn't really have that facility, so I had to think of something different to do. Now, we could have all just kept them separately on PDFs or something like that, but my mind flashed back to a way that a friend of mine, Lloyd Jan, used to have characters represented on a Google spreadsheet for when he was doing one-shots. And he'd have a single sheet set out with like all the character sheets on them so that we could all just go in and access the same sheet and do what we needed to do from in there. So I had a bit of a hunt around, and eventually I discovered someone whose name I forget, and I'm really sorry about that. I think it was on the Necrotic Gnome Discord, who'd basically put up a template of a Google Sheets OSE character sheet, and I've sort of adapted that a little bit and tweaked it for my own use. You can see that there on the screen if you're watching the YouTube version, but if you're listening to the podcast version, essentially it's just a spreadsheet with a number of boxes and cells on it which contain all the information you would expect to see on an OSE character sheet: the class, alignment, level, how much XP you've got, your attributes, saving throws, hit points, AC, stuff like that. Then there's a section for abilities, so you know, like what armor you can use, what weapon you can use, what languages you speak, sort of foraging and hunting, stuff like that. And then below that is an equipment section, which when I first sort of started using this, had just quantity and description on it. I've since added an additional field to that, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then below that we have a section with the various different denominations of coins on that you can note down how much wealth you've got, and just a generic notes section below that. And this seemed just like what we were looking for, so I used that, added a few things on, like little sort of token pictures of the characters at the top, because I already had those from when we've been using them in the previous VTT, and then I added a few other like little bits and pieces on, but nothing major, and it was all fairly easy to accomplish. I've recently started expanding this a little bit. I made a copy of the sheet for retainers. They previously had one retainer who has recently died, so has been like blanked off here. But they've just started taking on like a fair few hirelings and stuff like that. But obviously I don't need a whole character sheet for hirelings, so I just created this very simple sheet here, which, if I can remember how to zoom in, let's see if I can do that. There we go. As you can see there, it's very simple. It's got the AC, the hit dice, hit points, their attack, their base to hit bonus, because we're using base to hit bonus rather than THAC0, we're using ascending armor class, their move, their saves, their morale, alignment, how much XP they're worth. We've got their name here, a description, what equipment they've got, and their cost to employ, and then there's these like black separator bars between them. They did hire sort of 5 hirelings or so last session, but all but 2 of them perished, and the 2 that are remaining are Gartag, who is an ex-stable boy who schooled himself in the warrior arts, and he's effectively a fighting man, or he used the one hit dice veteran stats from Old School Essentials. And then they have Kilmore, who is this nervous guy who talks to this rat who he keeps in his pocket. And he's effectively got the stats of a normal human. He's more your sort of torch bearer, sort of look after the horses sort of guy. And I created all of those using the Meat Shields generator, which is the classic fantasy hireling and henchman generator, originally designed for Barrow-Maze. And that's really cool. Basically, it costs 5 gold pieces per day to try and hire people. You can pay an additional 5 gold pieces for a town crier if you want by ticking that. You select the size of the locale, a village or small town, or large town or city. Then you just click recruit hirelings, and it brings up a sort of quick list of different hirelings, giving them a name, type, race, hit points, their gender, weapons, armor, alignment, background, possessions and knowledge, notable features, and stuff like that. And you can click recruit more there, or you can page back to the original one. And I just used this. They're under a bit of time pressure in the scenario that we were doing, so I basically said to them, right, this first roll, it takes you a day to do that. If you can carry on recruiting for as long as you want, but each time you do it, it's gonna take a day. So that sort of time that you've got is ticking away, and you're a bit up against it. And I think that's a good way of handling things like this, because realistically, there's nothing to stop the players spending years just recruiting hundreds and hundreds of men. And if you've got all the time in the world, why not? You recruit as many people as you think you need. However, if you've only got a couple of days, and every day that passes, your enemy's getting further away or the situation's getting more dire, then you have an interesting choice. At what point do you stop trying to recruit more people and go, right, we're just going to have to go with what we've got? And you just sort of suck it and see, basically. And I like games where they have that element of choice in, where there's no real wrong answer. It's more about the players sort of making a decision based on the information they have at the time. So to go back to the Google sheet, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit again. So there we go. The last thing I've added, which I've only done recently, is a special items tab, which you can see here. And the reason I added that is because we were trying to fit a lot of information into these equipment sections, and they were getting very cluttered, and it was getting difficult to find things. So I thought, well, what's a way of me sort of still keeping information on items that we need, but also not clogging up these main sheets? So what I've basically done is, for items that need it, and not all of them do, for items that need a bit of extra information or that have some more to them, I've given them an item code, and that's just a 6-digit code starting at 5 zeros and a 1, 5 zeros and a 2, 5 zeros and a 3, etc., etc. And I just worked my way through, sort of putting them in order of how they appeared on these character sheets. Any items that don't need additional information, like a dagger, which it's already got the damage written down, I've just put NA in there. And then on this special items tab, all we've got here is we've got filters, so you can search for specific things on there. And I've got the item code, the item name, a little description, any special powers if they're known, and the value if known. So let's say we're playing in a game, and obviously during the game all of the players have access to this. They can all use this and make alterations on it. So let's say during the game, Dave H, his character Quentin, he's like, oh, do you know what, I'm going to have a... He's like, oh, well, what does the Breath of Truth do again that I've got one of? He can just copy that reference number there, go to Special Items, Control F, paste it in, and there you go. It takes him straight to it, and he can go, Breath of Truth. It's a flask containing mixed holy water, garlic, and silver flakes. It makes it difficult for changelings to hold an assumed shape when sprinkled with it. And we've got that little bit of information there. Now, obviously, I may have more information on those items stored in my GM notes, but these are just notes that are player facing. And some of them don't have that much on them. For instance, they found 4 potions in the last session, and all that they know about them is that they're potions they took from the Mad Necromancer's lair. They're 4 different colours: fleshy pink, pale blue, pearlescent, and white. And for the powers, it just says currently unknown. But in my GM notes, I've got written down what those potions do, along with those item codes, so that if at some point Quentin goes, oh, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to pull out that pale blue potion that I got from the Necromancer's Lair and chug it back, what is there left to lose? Then I can quickly go and look at item 15 in my GM notes, look at what the effects are, and we can play it through quite easily without having to do a lot of flipping backwards and forwards. So there we are. That's how I've sort of dealt with having player-facing information so far, for using the slightly more manual method that we're currently employing. And basically when we start a session, I open like a Zoom window or a video conferencing window. Once everyone's on board and they're all into the chat, I then just post a link to Owlbear Rodeo and a link to the Google Sheet. Everyone connects to them. I make sure everyone's can see everything fine, and then we just crack on with the game. Simple as that. Now, this might not be the best way of presenting this player-facing information to players, but I was looking for something that I could do fairly simply without me having to set up websites or do anything like ridiculous like that. I just wanted something simple that I could add to easily and my players could access easily. But I'm interested to hear what you guys do if you're going for a slightly more manual method. But obviously I'm still playing online because my players don't all live locally. But if you're sort of trying to step away from the VTTs and using like all the bells and whistles, but you're still playing online, I'd love to hear about what methods you're using to present player-facing information to your players. Perhaps I might pick up a few tips, or you might suggest something that I've not even considered. I'd definitely love to hear how you're doing it in your games. And if you'd like to get in touch and tell me how you do it, then you can drop us a voicemail message using either SpeakPipe or Anchor. There'll be a link in the description down below. Or you can send us an email to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. So until we see you again, thanks very much for listening. Take care, and whatever you're playing, have fun. See you soon.